Obviously, huge baseball guy. Jim Morris, the rookie, the youngest rookie ever to play Major League Baseball at the age of 35 in 1999. But we're going to start talking about football because, Jim, you got some football background. You were an all-state punter and kicker.
Yeah, at 15, my parents did me the biggest favor they never knew they did for me. They moved me from their house in Florida to my grandparents' house in Brownwood, Texas. Our football coach is in the High School Hall of Fame. He's got like 400 wins. He's got 8 state championships. And he knew football backwards and forwards, hated baseball. So we had no high school baseball team. But when you're there, you want to be a part of a team. And so football was it for me. And he taught us it doesn't matter how big, fast, or strong you are. If you have more heart and a better plan, you're going to win. And some of the best and worst things I carry with me to this day are some of the Mondays that he put us through. He would come out on a Monday with a playlist for a game, 40 plays. And you run through the playlist and you do them perfectly. And we don't practice, we practice perfectly. And when you get to 39, if you screwed that up, you went back to number 1. And so Mondays were a nightmare. And I kind of have that same work ethic in me that I will do stuff over and over and over until I am completely satisfied with it. But we won a state championship my senior year, and we weren't the best team on the field, but we had a better plan and we had more heart.
So you had so much success, and like you just said, you guys were great during your time in high school, but just your individual success was so big that you were getting looked at by NFL teams for the NFL draft. And what this podcast is all about is just inspiring listeners and just trying to motivate them and get them to be their best selves. And I always say that there's one decision, one moment, one choice, one conversation that can change your entire life. And as great of a football player that you were, there was literally one conversation that wasn't had that changed the rest of the course of your entire life, which came on draft night for the NFL. So just go a little bit into that. And if you're listening to this, I'm hoping that there's a reason why you press play. There's a reason why you're watching this. And Jim just brings back to that NFL draft experience that changed your life.
Every team came through to look at me. This was later. This was when I went back to college after my first trip through the minors and everything didn't pan out with baseball. I go back to college. I play college football, lead the country in punting and touchbacks on kickoffs. Everybody comes through. I got 5'3" hang time. They love me. I'm like, but I'm 28. And they're like, we don't care how old you are. Did you see George Blanda? He was a skeleton with a uniform on. And everybody loved me. And then that year, the draft comes and goes. And I don't get drafted. I'm devastated. I'm like, I thought I had all this going. I'm working all night. I'm going to school full time. I've got 2 young kids. I'm playing college football. And the only sleep I get are on weekends when we would go out of town and I would actually get to sleep at night on Friday night. And I didn't find out, that was in 92. I didn't find out until 2004 what happened with that draft. And I'm at the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in Corpus Christi. Reed Ryan, Nolan's son, is there to bring in the minor league complex. He's announcing it to everybody. I'm there. And then there's one other guy there at this meeting. He's in the back of the room. And I'm like, why would this guy come? He's just by himself. And Reed does his stuff. I do my talk. Everybody takes their pictures, autographs, great. And this guy comes up to me and he goes, do you remember me? I said, sir, I've met a lot of people in the last couple of years. He goes, no, I was your football agent. He had lost like 150 pounds. And I went, wow, you look fantastic. I said, do you still work with your daughter? He said, yeah, when I heard you were coming, we got your game film out and we were watching it. And I came here to ask you one question. I said, ask me whatever you want. You know, the 92, when the Steelers were going to draft you in the second round to punt, why did you not call back? I said, what are you talking about? He goes, we called a number and the person who picked up said you were out in the field kicking and they would go get you. You had 20 minutes to call and you didn't call. And I never even knew about the phone call. And for 30 seconds, I was the maddest human being on the planet. And I called Shauna and I went, this is what happened, man. This person did not give me the phone call. Just as quick, she goes, you wouldn't be where you are now. And it was just like that God thing. It was like, if I would have played football, I still would have been in that first marriage. I've been in a different state. I've been playing the NFL. Everything would have changed, but I wouldn't have achieved the dream that I wanted, which was baseball and everything that went with that. I'm married to the person I love more than anybody on the planet. We've raised 5 kids together. I got to play the game. Dennis Quaid played me in the movie. We're still friends, and it couldn't get any better than that. And so, while I didn't understand what happened at the time, I totally get it now.
Yes, exactly. That 30 seconds to that initial reaction. Of course, it's all emotional. So you're, like you said, you're pissed off, you're mad and everything. But just like Jean said, you're a great wife. She said, you wouldn't be here right now if it weren't for that. And like, that's exactly what I'm talking about, where it's just like one little thing can alter the rest of your life, the course of any goal that you're trying to set out and accomplish. And in this case, even though that phone call was not received, or that you did not talk to them, the stuff that just happened for you in your entire life was just amazing. So you may think that you're going to be doing something, and then one little thing can happen, and the next thing you know, you're doing something completely different, which led you to this huge success. Like we said at the top of this, you're the oldest rookie to ever play in Major League Baseball at the age of 35 in 1999, when you debuted with the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. At the time, they were called the Devil Rays. And it's just so crazy. So before we even get into your baseball career and how Disney made a movie after yourself that came out in 2002 called The Rookie, which starred Dennis Quaid, like you said, you're still good friends with him today. Take us back to your childhood, because before you were 10 years old, you lived in 14 different places before settling down in Texas.
Yeah.
Like, dude, that's nuts. And one of them, by the way, was in Connecticut, right down the road from where we're recording this, or at least I am in Stanford.
That's awesome. That was my favorite place to live, was in Groton. My dad was worked for the electric boat or whatever it was. And on Friday nights, we'd go down to Appy's down by the water where electric boat was and get all you can eat seafood, which I ate fried shrimp until I decorated the walls with it. And then I didn't eat shrimp again for 20 years. But during that period of time, I got to play a lot of stuff. And one of the biggest childhood memories I have paid a dividend by the time I was 37, 38. At 10, my all-star team went to Fenway to watch the Red Sox, and Hank Aaron came into town with the Milwaukee Braves, and I got to watch Hank Aaron play. He signed the ball for us. And this is a long story. I'm sorry.
No, I love it. I know exactly where you're going with this too.
At 10, I'm sitting up underneath the rafters in left field watching bats fly around as I'm watching the Red Sox and Carlton Fisk hit home runs, and I'm watching Hank Aaron play, who, by the way, is my hero, because what he went through, we have no idea what it was every single day to go to the ballpark, play the way he did, and tune out all the haters. We have no clue. But I did something very bad with the ball. If anybody has ever seen Sandlot, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's winter in Connecticut, and we had run out of baseballs, and I go, I got a ball. And I run in, I grab the Hank Aaron ball, and within 30 minutes, it was totally ruined. You jump ahead till I'm 37, 38 years old, and I'm closing the stock market, closing bell with Hank Aaron. And I'm telling him this story. And I'm just like, man, you are my idol. I said, you went through so much. And I said, you signed a ball for me when I was 10 years old. And he looks at me, he goes, I signed a lot of balls. I go, yeah, but I sandlotted your ball. He goes, you did what? I go, we ran out of balls and I sandlotted it. And I tell him the whole story. And I go, would you mind if I had another autograph? And he smacks me on the back. He goes, man, if you had told me that story, I'd have given you anything you wanted. He goes, you keep the sandlotted ball. And just the nicest person on the planet. It was just a great interaction with someone who is immortal in the sport, and just down to earth, and a lot of fun to meet. And who knew that at 10 I would meet him later on in life. So that was cool.
What did he end up signing for you?
He signed the back of my stock market coin that they gave us.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Sentimental value.
Yeah, they gave us a coin, and the whole experience was cool because you don't see anything like that when you're a normal person. And then to go and see everything happen in front of you, and then we're closing it down. Oh, amazing. And then to be with him while we're doing it, this was an incredible day. And the pictures they took, and a memorable experience I will never, ever forget. And just a huge hero of mine.
How much of your story did Hank Aaron know?
I don't know. We didn't get into that because we weren't together for a long time, just pretty much enough for me to tell him that I ruined the ball he signed for me and telling that story. But just to be able to be in the same room with him and talk to him face to face and find out that he was this human person, this tangible person who could be talked to and would communicate back with you, that was a lot for me. And I thought, man, You've seen a lot. And it was just an experience I won't forget. And I thank Disney for that. They set it up. Russell Athletics was one of our people in the movie. And so Hank Aaron is their biggest rep. And they put us together for the closing of the stock market. And I thought, this is the coolest thing on the planet. He shook my hand, gave me a little hug, and then off we went. And he went one way, I went another. But when you're 10 and then to have that experience when you're almost 40,
That's insane. That's people at home listening or watching this right now are trying to wrap their head around it probably.
yeah, you're trying to go, I watched this guy play. And now I'm sitting here talking to him, and now I've played the game he did. Now I did it for 100th of the time he did it, but I did it, and he was the best there ever was at what he did, and that was awesome.
And you actually said Fenway Park, if there was a stadium to make your MLB debut at, that wasn't the ballpark in Arlington in Texas, where the Texas Rangers play, it would have been Fenway Park because of that connection that you had. So that's cool to hear that you grew up in Groton, Connecticut specifically. And like you said, Abby's, you get the shrimp and you get the lobster there. That place is awesome. Ford's is great. And Groton, I actually, me and my wife, Becca, we had gotten married over there at the Branford House. So Groton is definitely an awesome area. So if you're listening to this, definitely give it a nice trip because it does have a lot of great stuff up there. So that's
Yeah.
really cool to hear that you did that.
It was a great time to grow up, and we played all our sports together. We're a military team, and I can remember playing a 13 to 15-year-old. I was 13, but it was up to 15 that year, and we're playing a national tournament. And we come out and play this team from New York or something, and the 15-year-olds had beards, and we were like intimidated. We're like, they're huge. And it's just baseball is such a cool sport because you can have the payroll of the Yankees and you can have the payroll of the Rays, and the Rays can end up going further with less of a payroll. Baseball is an evening board, and if you play together as a team, you can go a long way. If you stay healthy, you can go even further.
So you've been pretty vocal as a coach and as a player just about how you do not believe in sports specialization, which I feel the same exact way. I think that's important to play all different types of sports. And a lot of guests who we've had on this show who have played in the big leagues, like Joe Adele, Eddie Alvarez, all these successful big league players, they have played so many different sports as a kid up until high school and even college. And in Eddie Alvarez's case, up until being an Olympic athlete and
Yeah.
also too being in speed skating. You loved baseball. You were great at football, like we said at the top of this, and then there was also tennis, which you love to play tennis too. So it's like you could have gone so many of these different routes, and you did have to make that choice of what you ultimately want to play. So you did go the baseball route, but how hard was it for you to put tennis down because you love to play tennis?
Yeah, I made the varsity tennis team as a freshman at my high school in Florida. I made the varsity baseball team, second freshman ever to make the varsity baseball team. And they took me to the doctor, and because I've been having elbow tenderness, and they're like, you got to choose one or the other. You don't want to give up anything because when you're a kid, you think you can do it all. But tennis was easy to give up because baseball was something. I grew up in Oakland when Vida Blue pitched for Oakland, and I grew up in Connecticut when Louis Tiant was huge for Boston. And so baseball for me, since I could walk and talk, baseball's been it. And I played the other sports to supplement baseball. I think that by kids doing a little bit of everything, I think you get better and you get stronger and you get smarter. You become more adaptable. You learn more how to be well rounded. I think when you specialize in something, one, people are looking to take your money. And then I've got parents going, well, I spent $8,000 a year on my kid since he was 8. And I'm like, that's stupid. Why are you doing that? You could have put 20 kids through college with this. And he ended up quitting. I know, and that crushes me. Well, that was your dream, not his. And why are we doing this? Why are we living for somebody else? And so I tell parents now, they're like, well, what would you do? I let the kid choose. And if they need to step back for a little bit, let them step back. If they really love it, they'll come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
And but don't just go, it's going to be baseball because I didn't get to play when I was a kid. And since I played little league, I know everything about baseball. That's not a route you take with your child. You root and cheer for your child. And if they make the decision to play or not play, that's their decision. But I think playing a lot of sports, I think keeps you in shape, but it makes you adaptable team-wise. You're a better teammate if you have all these different sports coming into your head and you know how to adapt to every situation that could come up. I think it makes us better teammates.
Yep. Which again translates in life. So just all around, it's a huge win.
Yeah.
And for you, somebody who's very close to you, or actually two people, were your grandparents who you lived with around those years, and it was your grandma who got you your first glove. So that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. So how happy was she when she saw you just kind of succeed as much as possible, and how pivotal and instrumental was moving in with your grandparents and living with them and just their advice and parent like ways with you?
I think my grandmother had no idea when she got me that ball and glove uh, what would happen. She did get me a bike back when
Nice.
they had S&H green stamps. And so you collect S&H green stamps, you fill in the books. She let me do that for a bicycle. And I get the bike and I'm riding around her yard one day when I was a little kid. I was just visiting and I run into a pecan tree and these trees are huge. And she's looking at me and I'm laying on the ground. I'd just eaten the handlebars. Okay. And I'm a guy. So I'm on the ground. She's like, little Jim, there's a tree there. And I'm like, yes, ma'am. But she wanted me to be happy. And she didn't care if I played baseball. She didn't care if I rode a bike. All she could ever talk about was how I ran. You run like a deer, you run like an antelope. And she just loved to watch me compete. At 15, when I moved in with them, I didn't know what to expect because these were my father's parents. And I thought, wow, they could be like him because I haven't spent a whole lot of time with him. And he came from somewhere and physically and verbally abusive, horrible person to be around. And when I walked in, I had two rules. If you do it, own it, live up to it, move on. And number two, tell the truth. Those are my two rules. Man, we could learn a lot from that today. Tell the truth. The truth is the truth. It doesn't change no matter how many small bits of facts you put in it. If it's not true, it's not true. And we've gotten away from the truth because it scares people, it hurts people's feelings, and we got thin skin now. My grandparents lived through a depression. My grandfather fought in World War II, lost his brother in World War II, came home, started a menswear store in Brownwood, Texas, population 20,000 people from the ground up, and was a self-made person. He did it on a handshake at the bank. And the banker looked at my grandfather and said, if this was anybody else, I would not do this, but I know you're good for your word. He started his menswear store. And so to look at what they fought for this country and to see where we are now is disheartening. I love them and respect them that much. I just know this would be devastating for them. But my grandmother's probably the smartest human being I've ever seen in my life. I mean, she could do trig in her head. And when I would have problems with math, she would show me how to do it and I would get her shortcuts down and I would do them. And then I would flunk my math class. I'm like, the answer's right. And they're like, yeah, the answer's right, but I don't know how you got there. So
You didn't
that's
take the
no.
oh,
And
jeez.
I'm like, you're kidding me. But she was just awesome. She could hear a song on the radio and sit down at the piano and play it. And the things they taught me about my faith, about humor, never they were wealthy. And Thanksgiving dinners for families that couldn't afford it, Christmas presents for families with kids that couldn't afford anything, out of their own bank account because my grandfather was on a bank board. He knew who was in trouble. And out of their own account, anonymously, they would pay bills for people so they could keep their dream going on a little bit longer. And I just love the way that
Wow.
they did things. And I never wanted credit for it. They just wanted people to be happy and to go out and live and to not have excuses. And my grandparents taught me a lot. In the 3 years I lived with them, I learned a lot. I guess it's not always exactly what people say. Sometimes it's how they say it and what their body says while they're saying it. I watched my grandfather go through Lou Gehrig's disease during the last part of my high school and started with a trip in the store one day. And within 6 months, he went from a cane to a walker to a wheelchair. And the character and the grace that he carried that disease with, he was a 6'3" man who carried a community and part of a state on his shoulders. And after he was in a wheelchair, he is still 6'3", but he was still carrying people in a wheelchair on top of his shoulders. He did it with grace and character at a time when I thought, I don't know how anybody could do that. I don't know how you can live with that. He never complained, not one time, because everything that ever had in their life, they had to work extremely hard for. So they worked really hard. And when they played really hard. And that's what I loved about my grandparents, man. When it was on, it was on. Then it was time to turn it off and let's go have fun. Two best people I've ever known.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that with us. That's amazing. And wow, what a great set of grandparents. And that must have
Yeah.
been some of the best 3 years of your life. And I want to have you on this show. Obviously, there was a movie about you by Disney called The Rookie, which if you haven't seen that yet, definitely go check it out after you listen to this and watch this. But another reason, like the huge reason why I want to have you on is just because you're such a inspirational individual. You know how to motivate a room, and you're such a caring person. So you had your grandparents who were such great role models for you, and you were brought into this world. And like you said, you had a not the best relationship with your father, obviously not ideal, but what you grew up to be, the way that you coach people, both on the field and off the field, the individual that you became and the career that you chose and the hard work that you put forth. It's just like obviously not the most ideal ingredients. You know, you want that good relationship with your parents, you want that gated fence community, whatever, but like just what you're able to do with it and what you're able to turn into it was
Oh, thank
just
you.
it's just so awesome, man. So again, that's exactly why I want to have you on it. We haven't even gotten to the MLB debut part of this, but I just want to share your story with others just because it is just so inspirational. And
Thank you. I want to share something with your audience.
of course,
I have been told no so many times in my life. I was born with asthma. Within 24 hours, I had pneumonia. The doctors told my mom he will never ever play outside. He will never play on grass. That is a big no no. And I always found a way. I had a father in the military, and we travel across country with rolled up windows, smoking like a freight train inside the car with a kid who's got life threatening asthma because that's what he wanted to do. And I learned how not to parent from my parents. And I also learned something very important from my grandparents. I learned to not make excuses. Life is hard and nobody is going to give you anything, no matter what your government says. If you want to go out and get something, you've got to go out and work for it and you've got to sweat. And I don't understand some of the sentiment right now of we deserve this and we deserve that. You've not done anything. Why do you deserve anything? You have to work for it in this country. And that's what I've always loved. When I got up in the big leagues, I'd sit around the locker room with Roberto Hernandez, my best friend in the big league, Ozzie Guillen, and a couple other guys. And after the games, we'd sit around drinking a beer, talking about life and how hard it was. And those two are from Venezuela. And we went and played the Braves during spring training in 2000 in Venezuela to take water and food. Us and the Braves took a cargo load full of stuff. And we'd go through the mountains, and Bert would go, "You see all those shanties on the side of the mountain?" I say, "Yeah." He goes, "There aren't any floors in those." And we want to complain when we don't know what to complain about.
mm-hmm.
And I just
Yep,
want people to go, you know what? We've gone through a lot worse. And people who want to work and they want your dream, they're going to go out and get it. What are you going to do to outwork them?
100%. And again, just the message that you just shared, and so many other different things that you said before. It's just so cool to hear because it's like you're giving this fatherly advice to people who are in need, who want it or are looking for advice, and just like one of those things where it's just like exactly what you just said. You could be in a certain a circumstance that may not be ideal, may not be perfect, but then you just try to find a way to make the best out of it, and that's exactly what you've done. And one of the highlights of your career, we'll kind of segue now towards the baseball side of things, is yeah, shoot, you made a bet with your high school baseball team that you were coaching, and I'll let you tell the rest, but this is awesome stuff. You guys again may have seen it in the movie, but now we're hearing it from Jim himself.
In 1999, where the movie takes place, was my second year in Big Lake. And just for your audience, there is no lake in Big Lake. Don't look it up. It's about oil. And these kids have not won a baseball championship in their lifetime. And so I'm trying to tell them what they're worth. And I'm trying to push them without breaking them. And when you have kids who don't know how to win, they will usually find a way to lose. So we're breaking everything down. And I tell audiences, I would love to tell them everything I know about baseball, the whole history, how it's seen us through wars, recessions, depressions, all of it, civil unrest. And that's not what I had to do with these kids. I had to take them back to my grandparents teaching of me and go, if you want something, you have to work for it. You have to put in the time. And you know what? I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself. So if we scrimmaged, I scrimmaged with them. And if we ran, I ran with them. And if we threw, I threw with them. If we hit, I tried to hit. All pitchers think they can hit. They can't. And but I wanted them to know that I was willing to sweat and get dirty with them and I was in it with them for the long haul. And so the first year I was there, a year before 99, I inherited 8 kids. And, 8 is not enough to play baseball. And talked 2 more kids into playing baseball because I gave them an A in one of my science classes. They didn't need the A because they made straight A's, but they could not play baseball. And so we started from the ground up. We learned how to put our uniforms on correctly, put our hats on right. We learned how when we walk in between these white lines every single day, we're going to respect this game for what it has meant to this country, now the world, because everybody plays. But for 120 years, in between these white lines, this was America. And so we're going to respect that because a lot of great people that put uniforms on, they played this game. And I said, we may not be good, but we're going to look good being bad. And, you got to use humor with these kids because you use humor with everybody because you want them to listen. And if all you do is tell, they're going to go, okay, in one ear and out the other. The other thing my grandfather did so well was I never heard him raise his voice to anybody, but he commanded a room in any room he walked into just because of how he carried himself. And he would sit there and he would talk softly, but everybody wanted to listen to what he had to say. So that made everybody else be quiet. And people go, but you're not very loud and you're not boisterous or any of that. You don't sound like a coach or a manager. I was never meant to. I wanted to do things like my grandfather did, and hopefully one day I will get that down. I didn't find out until like 8 years ago that he was a Toastmaster. And I found that at a speech from a guy who goes, I knew your grandfather. I'm like, he gave speeches? I was blown away. But I want to do things like my grandparents did. And so we learned how to respect each other. And we didn't talk to the other team. We didn't talk to the umpires. And the only thing we're going to say to each other is good job. We'll get them next time. Nobody's trying to give up a home run. Nobody's trying to miss a pop fly. We're trying to do the same thing. We're trying to win. And we're trying to do it as a team. And one thing I didn't do early in my life at 19, 20, 21, the minors, it was all about me. I want this. I want that. I deserve this. I deserve that. And I failed every single time. And so now I'm using my own experience and going, that doesn't work. So let's do this. It's not about me. It's about we. What can we do to make us better? We got that down. We went in the classroom. We did our homework. We said yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am to teachers. We closed our mouths. We're there to learn. And I tell kids, if you're not learning, you can't dream as big as you can possibly dream. And these kids bought in. And we go back out to the field and we redo the whole field, infield, outfield, grass, dirt, trees, batting cage, parking lot. These kids wanted that because that was theirs. They had done the work. And when you do the work yourself, you respect it a whole lot more than if somebody just hands it to you. And so they didn't want anybody coming on their field and beating them there. And so that first season with 10 games, we won 10 games that year and we didn't lose at home. We were 10-0 at home.
And before that, you guys, or that team, had only won one game like each year, whatever. So you guys coming in, like you said, you're taking care of the field. You don't want to lose on it because it's yours.
No. And so coming into 99, they heard another coach talking to me, telling me, you've taken these kids as far as you can. These kids are losers. Their parents are losers. They're never going to amount to anything that's ever close or they're ever behind. They're going to find a way to lose. And then he put his hand on my chest and he goes, you're a great baseball coach, but you're always going to come in last to people like me because you're too nice. I know how to step on people to get to be where I want to be. And all I'm thinking is, wow, and they put you in charge of everybody. And I did not know my dad had a brother. And around the corner, 2 of my kids heard everything. He destroyed, this was not the guy who hired me. This guy came in later, destroyed 2 years of work in 90 seconds. So when the movie opens right after the Nuns, we get run ruled 2 games. Send the kids down the left field line, and stay on home plate, and I just said a prayer. What can I do to help these kids? How can I push them without breaking? How can I get these kids to dream? And the answer was so simple and so automatic. It was go down there and teach them what your grandparents taught you. I can do that. Nobody's looking at me. Everybody's looking at the ground. Start talking about hopes, dreams, goals. I said, you guys got to go out and live life. You can't let life live you. This is your life. You go out and do what it is you want. And they start buying into it. 20 minutes in, I hear my grandfather in the back of my head going, that's pretty good. They're getting it, man. They're smiling, they're engaged. And that's when my senior catcher looked at me, he goes, what about your dreams? I said, my dream is to watch you guys be successful in the classroom, on the field, graduate, go to college, see what's out there and decide what it is you want to do and where it is you want to be. He goes, that's fine. We love you, but we think you still want to play. I said, I can't do that. I'm 35. I weigh 260 pounds. I've had 9 surgeries. I look like a baseball scout, not a baseball player. And oh yeah, your moms make homemade tortillas for me with honey every time we get on a bus to go somewhere. That is not a playing diet. And the kids start laughing, they're engaging with me. And one of the things I've learned over time, I had a father who screamed and cursed at me, right? Then I had a grandfather who talked to me like I was an actual human being. So the rapport I had with my kids wasn't one of looking down, going yang yang yang. It was talking to you, and that way you hear things. So I'm talking to him, we're laughing and giggling together by now, and I'm like, I got him. And he goes, what if we start winning? I said, I can't do that, man. I said, when I had a surgery at 28 and they cut 85% of my deltoid out, they said, you will never, ever pitch again. Physically impossible. But coach, we can't hit you. I said, because you can't hit. And again, they started giggling. And well, what if we win a district championship? I argued with these kids for 20 minutes about every reason I should never step back on a professional mound. And after 20 minutes, I do what every parent does and caved in. You win, I'll find a tryout. They start winning, then they start winning by a lot. And next thing I know, I've forgotten about the bet. Now I can't get high school kids out. These 15, 16, 17-year-olds are hitting me all over the ballpark. And I'm just, one, I'm happy, but two, I'm like, see, I knew I couldn't throw. The doctors told me I couldn't throw. It's impossible. Then we win and we come from behind to do it in the district championship. And I'm watching this group of kids celebrate an accomplishment that not even they thought they could accomplish. I'm like, this is the most amazing thing. And you know this because you just had one. It's like men don't know how to cry until a nurse puts a baby in your arms. And it's like God going, you can cry now. And then you learn how to cry. So as I'm watching these kids celebrate, I've got tears in my eyes because they didn't think they could do this. I got tears in my eyes. My smart aleck second baseman comes up to me, sees me and starts giggling. And I said, shut up. And from behind his back, he pulls out a baseball head, Reagan County Alice District 128 champs, 1999. Everybody signed it. I cry harder. He hugs me around the neck. He goes, we did our part. Now it's your turn. And I look at him for a second. I'm like, oh no, I have to go try out. This is going to be more embarrassing than I thought. I can't even get high school kids out. Eventually school's over, baseball's over. I go to a tryout. It's in my hometown of Brownwood at Howard Payne University. My father had actually found it for me and read it to me out of the paper. Tampa Bay Devil Rays, June 19th, 1999. First 60 or 70 kids to get there to try out. 18 to 24, you get to try out. All right, he goes, you better get there early because they're going to count you twice. Thanks, Dad. Love you too. So this Saturday in June, the kids and I drive an hour and 10 minutes to Brownwood, park down the left field line. And I'm watching all these kids get out of their cars. They're tall, they're thin, they're athletic looking, brand new bodies, brand new gear, smiling from ear to ear because they're chasing that dream. And I look down at the gut hanging over the elastic band of my softball pants, which is not the picture painted in the movie. Thank you, Dennis. And I said, what have I done? And my son, who's heard about Alice and Ernest his whole life, he goes, you made a promise. It's time to get out. Because one of Ernest's biggest things was, if you make a promise, you live up to it because your word is who you are. And if you break your word, nobody's going to believe in anything you do. And so I'm at the tryout. As kids are trying out, other guys are warming up. Nobody will even play catch with me. My kids are 8-4-1 at the time. They're looking at me like I'm the crazy dude from around the corner, right? And I finally go up to the sign-up table. Doug Gassaway's a scout. He's about 70. Then he's been scouting for years. He looks up at me, he goes, how many kids you bring to tryout? And I look down at my 3 and I said, I brought 3. He goes, no, 2 tryout. And I said, I brought me. And he goes, no, seriously. And I said, seriously. And I explained it to him. I said, I have a group of kids who don't believe in adults. And if they did something that nobody thought they could do, I would try to do something I know I can't do. It's going to be embarrassing. It will be humiliating. You'll get a great laugh out of it, but you're going to let me throw, because if you don't, I got to go find somebody else who will. And when I get done, back then I had hair. He looks at me, he goes, why didn't you just shave your head like every other coach? And I said, where were you 3 months ago, man? And
Yeah.
I throw last. Everybody else has already tried out. All the guys are putting their stuff in the back of their car. Their parents are getting them in the car. Young guy catching me, gives me a sign for a fastball. I wind up and I throw it. Perfect strike. I'm like, yes, strike. The fat guy throws a strike. People start coming back behind the backstop, and Gassaway's shaking his radar gun. And I'm like, I'm either throwing really bad or really good. I don't know. And then about 50 pitches in, he looks at this kid and he goes, grab a bat and get in the box. And the kid looks at me and he goes, you want me to get in there against that? And that's when I knew. I was like, wow.
And you had zero idea at the time that you had thrown 94, 96, then 12 pitches in a row, 98 miles per hour. You had zero idea. So, like you just said, you're looking at the radar gun, having no idea. You're like,
Yeah.
damn, this not even registering my fastballs right now. They can't be too fast.
Yeah.
That is nuts. More and more scouts come over. Did any of them have any idea that you had been drafted by the New York Yankees? You had been drafted the following year after the Yankees by the Brewers in the first round of the January draft. How'd you show up to the, was there a resume? Like, what exactly did they know about you? Or were you just that old fat guy? Or sorry, were you just that old big guy on the mound chucking
I
heat?
call it fluffy. I was a fluffy guy.
Fluffy.
Doug Gasaway had seen me in college. He goes, I remember you back in college. You were a football star. Everybody wanted to make a picture out of. I said, yes, sir. He goes, you were tall and thin. And I don't know what you've done your time off aside from eat, but the first pitch you threw was 94. Everything after that went up to 98. And I'm stunned, right? Because everybody wants to hear that. You want to hear that in your head because you got a happy dance. I throw 98. I throw gas. The second thing that
That's
goes
after
through your
10 years of
mind,
not playing.
yeah, the second thing that goes through your mind, I am an educator and I've been throwing 98 miles an hour at high school kids. I'm getting sued. And those were two things that ran through my mind real quick. And he goes, look, you're old. And I said, well, thank you. He goes, you were 35 when you got here. I'm calling this in and I can't turn on a lefty with great movement who throws 98. So now you're 32. And I said, if I come back again, can I be 29? And he just looked at me and shook his head. He goes, don't be surprised if you get a phone call. He goes, they're going to think I'm drinking again. I get home, it wasn't one phone call, it was 12. And they wanted me to come back. They want me to come back and try out in 2 days to see if I could throw that hard. If I did, they want to sign me. And the rest is history.
Wow. Now, is this the same guy, the 70-year-old at the very beginning when you checked in and he was talking smack about what kid? Wow. I'm sure
Yeah.
you probably had a good kick out of it saying goodbye to him that day.
Well, it was fun because I signed a minor league contract the second time I tried out. And our director didn't even know this happened. He thought it was Mike Rich, our screenwriter, put it in there just because it's Hollywood. That it rained so hard they had to hand me a brand new baseball every pitch. And sliding up to my knee in mud, what actually went on was the catcher for Howard Payne decided he was going to take his girlfriend to lunch and forget what time I was showing up to throw so he didn't have to catch me. And so the manager for Howard Payne had to catch me in metal spikes and metal gear. I got metal spikes on. It is lightning all around us. I've got my 3 kids in the lightning. We've got a metal screen around behind the plate. And we're all out there in this huge thunderstorm in Texas. It is absolutely pouring. And 98, signed a contract, took a pay cut from teaching to play minor league baseball. It's awesome.
Damn. Okay, so now you go to minor league baseball. You're there for like literally a cup of coffee, and then you get that call. Just take us back to that moment when you got the call to the big leagues, and like, who was the first person that you then called after that? Because you probably had a freaking huge list of people that you had to let know.
There weren't actually a lot of people. I knew I had to call my son, and I knew I had to call one of my kids on the team. And that one call would turn into 50 calls immediately. They would call everybody else.
Oh, that was smart. I like that thought process. In my head, I was just thinking, oh man, he's got to call roster 1 through 10, the AD.
It was 1 a.m. already. And I thought, I can't call everybody, man. Parents are going to get mad. And so I call my son, I call one of my kids. How it went down was I threw the 8th inning. My friend Bobby Munoz, going back to the big leagues after a surgery, is through the 9th inning. He was our closer for Durham. And we're playing Charlotte Knights. And if we win, we go to AAA World Series. If they win, they go to AAA World Series. 2-1 when I come in, 2-1 when Bobby comes out. We lost, season's over. We're riding home together. He's from Dallas. And so I'm running a ride back to Dallas with him. Our stuff is in the back of his pickup. And as we're getting dressed at our lockers, the manager comes up. He taps me on the shoulder. It's Phil Evers. He goes, I need to talk to you. And I looked around the locker room. I said, I don't think so. He goes, why? I said, because the last 6 guys you talked to are all crying right now, and I choose not to cry. And he starts giggling. He goes, come on. And literally, I walk from my locker into his office, and my head is down. I'm not upset. I'm not sad. I've gotten to be a kid again at 35. This has been a blast of a summer. I got a job waiting for me at Fort Worth. Football's already started. The guy's already held the job longer than he should have. I'm going to be a football coach, one of the football coaches, and the baseball coach. As I walk into the office, I'm processing everything I've been through in 3 months. We made a bet. 3 months later, They win and I try out. 3 months later, I'm in the big league, all because of a group of kids. As I walk in, I'm trying to go, wow, I got so close with these kids. It doesn't matter if I don't get my dream. He can cut me. It's cool because I'm 35. I shouldn't be here anyway. As I walk in, our big league general manager's there and he goes, you can smile. You're going to be in Texas tomorrow. And I didn't get it. And I go, I know that. Bobby and I are going there right now. And he said, no, there's a uniform waiting on you at the ballpark in Arlington. We're playing the Rangers. And I was stunned. And I was just like, wow. Call my son, call my high school. The next day at the ballpark in Arlington, Johnny Oates, God rest his soul, let 150 people in the game that day that had ties to me. Opposing manager lets 150 people in the game. He probably had to pay the tax on all that, and he let him in.
Wow.
What a nice human being he is, except for one thing. After the game that night, they asked him about me the first night I pitched and struck out Royce Clayton. They're like, so what did you say? What do you think about Morris? He goes, well, when he came in, I looked at my head scout and I go, we have any scouting reports on this guy? And he goes, the last time he threw, they wrote on Cage, so no. I'm like, you did not say that on TV, dude.
Wait, did he really?
Yeah, he said that.
I didn't come across that while I was doing all the research. Usually, I'd like to think that I'd hit all the angles.
Before I go into the clubhouse, I have to sign my contract. Sign my contract. They give me 10 days meal money. And that 10 days meal money is worth 6 weeks of my paycheck for teaching, just meal money. I walk into a clubhouse where there's Wade Boggs, who had just gotten his 3,000 fit. I've heard about the crazy science teacher for 3 months. He goes, that is the best story I've ever heard. And I'm like a coach in the fin. I'm like, you're Wade Boggs. He looks at me like, yeah. And Roberto Hernandez, Fred McGriff, Jose Canseco, these guys just accepted me in. And so I'm talking to Bert in the bullpen for 8 innings going, there is no way they're pitching me tonight. I've thrown 3 days in a row in AAA. I threw 3 innings last night. I'm not throwing. In the 8th inning, they're like, warm up. And I'm like, oh, they just want me to warm up in front of 45,000 people. That's cool. You're in. And that's blown away. I opened the door from the bullpen to go in, and everything that you know about baseball from the time that you're a little leaguer, the smell of the dirt, the smell of the leather, popcorn, hot dogs, Cokes, beer, all of it, you smell it. You see all the colors from the Texas Rangers fans, red and blue everywhere. You hear the noise of the stadium. And I've heard guys who are on top of things their whole life. They go, when you're in the zone, nothing else matters. And all that noise closed in to a point by the time I reached the mound. And I went through so many thought processes on the way to the mound from the bullpen about what it took to get there. And I never would have gotten there if it hadn't been for these kids. I never would have tried it again. It's impossible. You can't throw again. You have nothing there. To now here I am because of a group of high school kids who thought more of me than I thought of myself. And when I thought about teamwork and I pushed them, they pushed me back and we made each other better. And now here I am. So I tell people, when I stepped on the dirt of the mound at the ballpark in Arlington, I would not change one thing about my life because that made me who I am. It may have taken a long time to get here, but I'm here.
And then that first batter that you faced was Royce Clayton. The dude ended up playing 17 years in the big leagues, just over 1,900 hits. So this guy's no joke. He was actually also a former first-round MLB draft pick, I think about 5 years after you were taken originally. So, like, 4 pitches, strikeouts. Dude, you got that strikeout on that first at bat. That was nuts, man. Like, I still, to this day, even when I see that at bat, like on YouTube, I still get chills. Even thinking about it right now, I get chills. You guys, if you haven't seen this, definitely look it up because it is awesome. And like you said, once you got onto that mound, you were in the zone. I had David Ayers on this show not all that long ago. He was the NHL goalie, the emergency backup goalie that came into play for the Carolina Hurricanes. This dude touching 40, and he comes in, and as soon as he gets on the ice, he said that he was not nervous at all because in that crease, he's been there a bunch of times. He ended up getting the win. So, like, the first ever backup goalie to get a win in an NHL game. Nuts. 2020, best feel-good moment of the year in the NHL. My point being, though, is that you have this guy around 40 years old. You have yourself around 40 years old. One goes into the crease. He's been there his entire life. Another goes onto the mound, been there your entire life. And as much noise on the outside that there was between fans and things going on in your head, it's just remarkable how you're able to just lock in so much and just really be in the zone. Like it takes a special person to do that. And that's something that you did and that you accomplished. And I know that people remind you probably every single day. I see the jersey in the back right behind you, and the movie poster for the rookie. But dude, that is something that you should obviously be proud of. But just at the end of every day, I mean, man, how do you not go to bed with a smile on your face? And hearing everything that you're telling about the story too, just about how you kept your word. This entire thing, great sports achievement, but just the character and the individual. You could go to sleep even better that night knowing that you're a man of your word and that you put 110% forward. So, dude, if we were together, I'd be giving you like a bro hug or a fist pound or something, man, because this is awesome, dude.
I got to tell you that the athletic director who had hired me in Fort Worth and kept my job open until the very last second, and then freaked out when he found out where I was. And he goes, "You're doing what?" The next time he saw me was at the ballpark pitching against Royce Clayton. And he was blown away. He goes, "I get it. Royce could have hit the ball 9 miles. It wouldn't have mattered. I was there. And you're a part of something and you can do what you're there to do. So you're respected. It doesn't matter if you're 18 and it doesn't matter if you're 40. If you can do the job you're there to do, your team respects you because it is a team. It doesn't matter about color. It doesn't matter what orientation you are. If you're a ball player and you can help the team, you're accepted. If you think that you got something you don't deserve, you're going to hear it. Has nothing to do with any of the other peripheral things. It has to do with, can you help us or can you not? That's what I love about sport. You can either play it or you can't. And if you can play it, come on, man, let's play. And if you can't, next. And that has always been my number one thing about sport. And that's what one of the things I think sport teaches us about life. If you can do it, do it. And do it 100%, 100% of the time. And when it's over, look back and go, I gave it everything I had. And now it's time to move on. Now I know how to work for the rest of my life. I give it everything I have every single day.
And then after that, so it's like the movie comes out. You have a great relationship with Dennis Quaid, who played you in The Rookie. You got to spend so much time with him playing catch at his house. He was so into just playing your role and really just absorbed everything that you told him like a sponge. So the movie comes out, huge, huge hit. That was in 2002. So it just showed your entire career, which you're, by the way, I know your career ended at Yankee Stadium, which like, dude, that's pretty cool too. I mean, talk about storybook. But after the movie comes out and everything, you're now seen in this different light. And then you eventually go into the motivational speaking area, which you said before, you never expected yourself to do something along those lines. So post The Rookie and post your MLB career, it's like your second lease on life of another career of baseball, of more feel good stuff. Just like kind of going to that like post baseball life. And I know things had been a struggle at times, and there's a lot of different things that I could touch on right now and asking you, but I'll let you share some of that information. But the second part of your life after that, it's almost like it could be a movie in itself. You need The Rookie Part 2.
Kind of what Dennis said. He goes, "This is a better story." In 2001, I signed with the Dodgers. Frank Joe, who had tightened my elbow up, who had done the original Tommy John for me back in '86, told the Dodgers what shape I was in. They signed me. I go work out at Chavez Ravine during the winter, 98 to 100, man, on the black slider. Now I'm throwing my split again. I'm hitting, I'm running, I'm throwing, I'm lifting, doing all this stuff. And literally in 5 days, I drove from LA to Vero Beach where they still had spring training. And the first day of spring training, I'm trying to play catch with one of the other lefty pitchers. And I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm afraid of the ball. I can't judge it. And so I'm trying to play catch and I can't. And we try to do bunting drills. I teach kids how to catch the ball with the bat all the time. And bunting is the easiest thing on the planet to do. People just don't give it enough time, or they don't think they're worthy of bunting because I need to hit home runs. And now I can't judge the ball. And then I get scared. And I'm talking to Dr. Joe. I'm like, my arm doesn't feel real good. In my mind, I'm going, if I throw the ball up there at 100 and somebody like Stanton hits it back at me at 120, I can't even play catch. I'm going to take it in the mouth. I can't do anything about that. Walking in Jim Tracy's office, I go, I'm not going to be an all-star. I'm 37. I appreciate it. You guys are a great organization. I love everybody here. Class act. He goes, if you ever need anything, you let me know. He goes, you're a class act. And send me home with stuff for all the kids, LA Dodger gear for everybody. go through the movie set, and all of a sudden I can't see right, and I can't judge numbers on my phone, and my balance is starting to get off. I'm like, what is going on? Sean and I marry. Things are still going wrong. A lot of nerve issues, a lot of surgeries over the next 20 years, 70 surgeries.
Damn, up to 70.
Yeah, finally I get diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, CTE-induced Parkinsonism. So too many concussions. And the guy who diagnosed me is the number one movement specialist in the world. And I had to tell you, I'm not going to tell you his name because he's a jerk. And I fired him. But he said, you had too many concussions when you were a kid. And now this is what's going to happen. I'm like, well, I do not accept that. But he was right. And end up having deep brain stimulator put in. They put the electrodes in your brain and a battery pack on your chest. You have this remote control that you put it up here, and you can, electrical juice takes the place of dopamine is what happens. And so we get into all this, and because the medicine they gave me worked, but it killed my stomach, and my stomach totally quit digesting food. Food was just rotting in my stomach. And so now I have gastric bypass surgery, and that leads to a whole bunch of other surgeries. And so we do the deep brain stimulator. And from the moment I woke up, even though my neurosurgeon said, you're probably not ever going to get smell back, that's just not going to happen. The first thing I smelled was when I woke up in recovery, and I went, like, I can smell. I won't tell you what I smelled, but I was in a room with a lot of people, and it wasn't pleasant, but I smelled it. And they take me into the room, and I smelled, my wife had Italian food, but I didn't want to tell her what she had until she got ready to sit down. I went, you got Italian food? And she goes, how do you know? I go, I smell it. And she was shocked. I haven't been able to smell in years. And I can smell, I can taste, I can do everything. And this thing has been a godsend. But after 70 surgeries in 20 years, you're either on painkillers before, during, and after to get well. And that's not working because you're still in pain. I have pain syndrome Parkinson's. And so I thought I will add my own. My chemistry teacher, I know how to do this. And so I'll add vodka and cranberry juice because cranberry juice is healthy. So now I'm taking painkillers and I'm drinking. And so I don't remember the week of 2016 Christmas. All my kids were in town. I have no recollection. I wake up and my wife goes, we're going to rehab. I didn't register with that either. I'm like, okay. And I call it the last resort for the last resort. I go to West Palm Beach, and I'm not there for spring training. I'm there for rehab from chemicals. And during that process, I realized in those 30 days, that is the first time in my life I've ever been in some place to concentrate just on me. I'm not trying to make a relationship work. I'm not trying to raise kids. I'm not trying to coach. I'm not trying to play a sport. I'm there to work on me and all the fractures that I've had in my past, mainly from my parents' upbringing and everything I'd blamed on. No pills, no alcohol. All right, I can do this. About the third day there, my counselor is a pastor on the weekends. He pulls me in, been to every major league stadium, has mementos from every stadium in his office. And he goes, love the story. Dennis was awesome. Why are you here? And I said, I'm not trying to kill myself, but I'm not trying to live either. I said, every time I go to the doctor, they tell me it's just going to get worse. I go, my elderly mom bought me a cane to walk around the block. It's just, this is not what I pictured. And he goes, we're not promised anything. And I said, I didn't say we're promised anything, but I've worked my whole life to be in that top 1% in athletic competition. And now I have to walk around the block dragging my leg with a cane. I go, that's ridiculous. And we had a long talk, and basically what it came down to was about faith. He goes, so you believe Jesus is with you, right? And I said, yeah, absolutely. He goes, so what you're telling me then is he's like your co-pilot. And I go, yeah, just like the bumper sticker. He goes, well, if Jesus is in a vehicle with you, why is he not in charge? And I don't know what that did, but it hit me. It was like a light switch. I was like, oh, yeah. And, my grandparents were charismatic before charismatic stuff came in, because they were in a religious box at our Methodist church in Brownwood, but they were already practicing the way that Jesus told everybody to live. And if you have, you give back. Did my 30 days, started working out again before I ever left there, went to all my classes, no alcohol, And during 2020, the first elective surgery I've ever had in my life, I had a deep brain stimulator taken out. And I would tell everybody the whole story of how that came to be. It's in the book, man. You got to get the book. Because for 20 years, I tried to write this book. After every speech, question and answer section, people were like, "This is awesome. What have you done since baseball?" A lot. And not all of it good. But I'll tell you the truth. And here it is. And I never had an ending in 20 years. And then in his wisdom, he gave me two endings instead of one. And chapter 9 is the rehab chapter, and chapter 10 is the faith chapter. And the whole deep brain stimulator thing was unbelievable. And my dog, my lab Max that I lost, he went with it. He went through it with me. And we were looking around the house one night for something that wasn't there. Or was it? And it led me to turning off my deep brain stimulator the next day. And I closed my eyes and I turned a circle for the first time in 15 years and didn't lose my balance. I didn't fall down. And when just a month before, my wife accidentally turned off my remote and I fell over in our closet. And just, we can't take life for granted. It's too precious. You have a 25-week-old who is depending on you for everything right now. And you're going to bring them up the very best that you can. And I watched your puppy playing with the baby earlier. We can't go, well, when my baby is 20, they're not going to want to be a part of my life. Because we're all going to go through that. Our job is to bring our kids up to be independent thinkers so they can go out and live life the best they possibly can. It's not upon them to look at us and go, okay, we need to take care of you guys. And we need to make sure you're happy, because they're busy living their own lives. And that's what having kids is about, setting them up so they will be successful in life. And I didn't have any idea when I was helping those kids in Big Lake that they would be helping an adult out who had lost his way. No clue. When I pushed them, they pushed back. We made each other better. And rehab turned my life around because I went, there's no need for any of that stuff now. And when I quit believing that other things would help, that's when my health started coming back. And now I work out every day, and now I lift weights every day, and I can walk, I can run, I can do whatever I want. The neurologist didn't want to believe that, and she had me do another brain scan. And so I drink the radioactive fluid test. She goes, "Your dopamine levels are perfect. That says you don't have Parkinson's." I'm like, "Told you." And so I do all the physical tests. She's like, "Your balance is perfect. What happened?" "I don't know what happened." I said, "You're the one that knows everything. You're the one that told me I would get worse. Obviously, that's not happening, is it?" I was like, "No, it's not." She goes, "This has never happened. I've never heard of anybody get well from Parkinson's ever." I was at the point where my girls watched me do a speech and I wasn't making facial gestures anymore. And they're like, "You don't move your face anymore when you talk." And I'm like, "What?" It's not even registering to me. And if you've ever watched Seinfeld, there's an episode where Elaine makes fun of this woman who doesn't move her arms when she walks. That's the way I walk. And they're like, "You walk like this." And I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me." Now everything's kind of what I consider back to normal for almost a 60-year-old, but I'll take my health over a Major League Baseball dream any day of the week.
Yeah, for sure. And I was actually going to tell you, just by seeing all the past videos of your speeches and everything and just past photos, even during your playing days, I would go as far as saying that you may be in better shape now than any time other than that before,
Yeah.
because like I could just see just like in your face, like you look like a baseball dude. You look like a baseball coach, but not Fluffy, who you referred to yourself earlier. You look like Jim Morris, the healthy baseball dude that now you're walking and running 5 to 8 miles a day. And thankfully, everything has gotten better with Parkinson's
Yeah.
disease, which was CT induced. And it's amazing that you've just been able to stay clean and stay healthy now. There's only so many more better and great things that are headed your way. And you mentioned the book. So I want people to be able to follow you on social media and also to learn more about you. And just, I'm sure everybody's fired up right now, but get fired up even more. So you do have the two books that are out. So shoot out the names of the books, where they can be found, Of course, I know, and definitely a huge fan of him again, which is one of the reasons why I want to have you on, and just so grateful for you to be spending your time with us. Shoot them all out. The floor is yours. And then after that, because your grandfather was a Toastmaster and you are the motivational speaker, you could give us a toast before we sign off. How's that?
Sounds good.
All right.
The Oldest Rookie was the hardback. That's what originally came out. And it's not in print anymore. And I found out from doing a podcast several weeks ago, they're like, dude, I tried to buy your book and it's like 460 bucks on Amazon. I'm like, I'm not getting that money. How is that possible? And then Disney buys the rights to the paperback and they put Dennis on the front and it's the rookie. So the Oldest Rookie, the rookie, the one we had come out that Dennis wrote the forward for that actually made me cry. I was stunned. I told my wife and my co-writer, I said, don't bother the man. And then he calls me, he goes, I'm writing it. I'm like, okay. And it blew me away. He wrote the forward for Dreammakers and it's got a feather on the front. And the feather is about faith and the faith is in chapter 10. And I think people will get a lot out of it. And you don't believe, but you know what? For those of us who do, we can believe.
Off the bat, and just by reading the cover, which anybody can see, about surrounding yourself by the best to be the best. Dude, this is actually like one of the reasons why I had started this podcast and this show, is just because I'm like, I want to always continue to get better and be of service to people and share other people's stories with the talents that I have. So your cover is what sold me big time on it. But so that's the second book. And now for the social media channels, because dude, we're going to get you some more followers for sure. But this is awesome. So where can everybody follow you on social media?
JimTheRookieMorris.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn. Look me up, become a part of my working network that my wife takes care of. I'm not going to lie. And she does read things to me and I'll tell her, she goes, how would you say this? And I'll go, well, I don't mess with that stuff too much because I'm like, I get confused with it. Okay. If I can write it down, that's what I did my whole life. I wrote. And when I found out that my daughters don't know how to write in cursive anymore, after they went through high school, I went, what are we learning in high school? We don't even know how to write in cursive.
Scribble.
Yeah, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, Instagram as well. And those are fledgling, the Instagram one especially, and we're trying to build that up. And I got a little bit of my grandfather in me, and you know what? Suck it up and get after it and quit crying. And that is the phrase that I would tell. I've told my high school kids that. I've told my kids that when they grew up. And I've got kids that don't cry and, not whining and complaining. But even ball players now, they're like, well, I want what I want because I want it. Today, I want to be a major league ball player. And I suck. I've never played my life, but you're going to put me in because I told you I want to play. And that's my dream. Never worked for it. Can't play, but you're going to put me in the game. Where does this make sense on any planet? We're just going to here, have your dream. Do whatever you want. You got to work for stuff. And until you work for it, you're not going to respect it. And if somebody just hands it to you, you're just going to go, yeah, it didn't mean that much to me anyway. But if you work for it and then you achieve it, now you know how far you've come, so you can make the next goal even further. And that's what I love about working hard and pursuing the next goal. Because people ask me now you got your health back, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I'm trying to decide, do I really want to get into golf? Because the more you play, the madder you get. Or do I want to go do something like a marathon? And I would do the deal in Hawaii, except there are sharks in the ocean and I'm not doing that. If it wasn't for sharks, I'd be all over that, but I'm not doing that.
Yeah, well, hey, thank you for channeling your inner grandfather, and I'll toast to some water that I have in my bat mug, and cheers.
And congratulations on the baby, man. You don't know you have more heart until they put that baby in your arms. You're like, wow.